Welcome to Dignifying Life. This is a podcast of Simpson Funeral Home. Our desire is to bring hope to the heart by providing information and resources regarding end-of-life care. If you're struggling with grief or know someone who is, or have questions about funeral planning, this just might be the place for you to find some hope for the journey and a little insight to share with your struggling friend or family member.
Well, welcome to our Dignifying Life podcast, and I'm your host, Kyle Beverland. I serve as pastor at Emmanuel Baptist Church chaplain here at Simpson Funeral Home. I have a couple gentlemen with me that are distinguished and honored. I'm grateful for these guys. I have with me Nathan Dawson.
Am I distinguished or honored?
Well, something like that.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know if one of us was distinguished and one of us was honored.
Honored and distinguished.
Now you got us both curious.
I know. I'll have to figure that out for future episode. Yeah. Okay. So, Nathan's pastor at Airport Community Church, one of our chaplains here at the Simpson Funeral Home, and Jim Wickenkamp is one of the pastors at Christ Church of Oronogo, and he's one of the chaplains here at Simpson Funeral Home. So it's good to have you guys. I have a question for you, real quick. We start off today, and that is pet peeves. Pet peeves, Jim. You have a pet peeve?
I do. That I like my food hot when it's supposed to be hot.
Yes.
Whether it's like you order at a restaurant and it finally gets there.
And the key is if it's supposed to be hot.
Supposed to be hot.
Salad,
yeah.
You don't want it hot.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So it's really disappointing if it's not. And I'm glad my wife understands that she's not offended if I go put my food in the microwave.
Yes.
Because it had a chance to cool down or something. And
she probably says, Jim, if you'd come when I called you to eat dinner, it would still be
right.
warm, right?
That's right.
Yeah. That's her pet peeve.
Mm-hmm. We got them both covered. So.
Oh, wow. Nathan, you have a pet peeve?
I cannot think of one off the top of my head. That just drives me bonkers.
No.
So I'm trying to figure that one out.
You're a laid-back personality.
I must be a little bit more laid back than I thought I was. So
that's good. My pet peeve. One of my pet peeves, and this may be at the top. I don't know. Maybe the top 5. I don't know. Maybe I've got too many pet peeves. When we eat pizza as a family, and my kids will tell you this, order a good pizza, it has toppings on it, and they'll pick the toppings off the pizza before we pray and eat or whatever. And I'm always telling, don't pick the toppings off the pizza because who wants a piece of pizza with no toppings and cheese that's partly been taken off and some tomato sauce. I don't want that. So I'm always don't pick the toppings off the pizza. That's just kind of, they've heard me say that many, many times. And it's really hard because it's maybe one of the greatest temptations known to man is when you've got a meat lover's pizza and there's a little piece of sausage, and I'm hungry. I'll just take that little bit off there and we're good to go. But the thing is, one little bit turns another little bit, and pretty soon you got a picked over pizza. Maybe I should.
Your pet peeve is a preliminary pizza picker.
That's right.
Person.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know how dangerous this is, letting us know this information because you know where we should.
You're gonna order a pizza, put it in front of me, and start picking the toppings off.
Right. Yeah, just see how long it takes till you blow up.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. Yesterday, my wife got in a car wreck. So somebody hit her. She's good and everything, but I told her a car's at a car shop yesterday, and I test drove a car. I told the guy one of my pet peeves of cars is a rattle in a car you can't find, and a shimmy in the steering wheel. Those two things bug me with an automobile. Anyway, okay.
Well, I thought you were going to say, and then you took this car out for a test drive, and it had both of them.
Well, it didn't. It did have a little shimmy in the steering wheel, but it was fine. It actually ended up being the car we bought, but the tires needed a little tweaking.
Yeah.
They put new tires on it, but apparently maybe when they went back to the shop and it was a used car, but they went back to the shop. I guess they weren't balanced right. I don't know, but I did get it. It was cool and enjoy the vehicle. So okay. Pet peeves aside, let's talk about something serious. We have a great desire to help folks in the midst of their grief journey or help people that are in the midst of their grief journey. Maybe you have a loved one. And so that's really the purpose of our podcast. And we want to talk a little bit today, kind of start a conversation, this podcast, around something we call the 5 N's. And those 5 N's that Nathan's going to give you in just a minute kind of serve as a roadmap for understanding grief and what somebody's going through. I say that to say, none of us take a journey. None of us will go on a journey if we don't know where we're going, how we're getting there, what we need to take. We want to know the agenda. We want to know what we need. We want to know travel itinerary. We want to know all those things, and then we take the trip. We've got kind of peace of mind. But grief kind of takes us on a journey that we're unfamiliar with. And if we don't know what that journey is going to hold, then it can make the journey a little more difficult. And so we want to kind of provide a roadmap, kind of help folks understand what this grief process is, what this grief journey is about. Nathan, you have 5 N's. 3 of them come from Steve's ministry.
Yeah.
But you want to give us those 5 N's?
Yeah. So credit to Stephen Ministry, which is a great organization that churches can utilize. That's a different discussion for a different day, maybe, but it is the first 3 that I borrowed or stolen from them, which is grief is normal, or actually the first one is natural, normal, and necessary. So those are the 3 N's that I've picked up from some training through Stephen Ministry. The last 2 I think are just observations that I've observed through ministry, which is grief is not the same for everyone, nor is it the same every time. So natural, normal, necessary, not the same for everyone, and not the same every time.
Yeah. So kind of a great just a flyover of what those 5 N's are. Natural, normal, not necessary, not the same every time, not the same for everyone. We're going to unpack those both in this episode and subsequent episodes. But let's kind of dig into that first one, natural. Why is it important that we understand grief as something that's natural to humanity, natural to each of us? Why is it important we understand grief is natural? Jim, why is it important that we understand grief is natural?
Yeah. Well, I think one place that we can start is it's natural for people to have connections with others, that it's natural to have attachments.
Yeah.
And then everything that comes with those attachments. And there's lots and lots of positive things that come when there's healthy attachment.
Yeah.
And so when you think about when that attachment comes to an end, whether it's expected or unexpected, and how that changes everything.
Yeah.
And there's something natural about that, something that's expected about that, something that happens for everybody, because everybody experiences relationships coming to an end and that detachment. So that's part of it being natural. It's expected. It's something that's common for all of us.
Yeah. Nathan, when you think about natural and sitting down with a family or sitting down with an individual, thinking about talking with them, hey, this what you're going through is natural. What's your thought process to help them?
Yeah, similar with Jim. I mean, it's there's a natural attraction there. There's a natural attachment. It's natural when we love someone, and that love is natural. It's organic. You might think like a parent or a loved one, a spouse, a sibling, close friend. That's just a natural relationship. There's a natural connection there, and then when that person's gone, that relationship's gone, then the opposite is true too. There's going to be naturally you're going to grieve that loss.
Yeah,
it's a natural response.
Yeah, I think God has made us relational beings. We're relational. You think about all the way back in Genesis when God created man, He created Adam, and one of the things He said to Adam, He said, "It's not good." Said about Adam, "It's not good for man to be alone." And then He created Eve, and of course we have the institution of marriage created early on, right after creation, and in the midst of creation you have the institution of marriage. But you also have the reality that man was not designed or created to live in isolation, alone from other people, and so we grow close to people. We have relationships, we have family relationships, friendships, and so forth. And so our relationships are there, and that's good. God's made us to have those, to need those. We need that those sorts of relationships in our life. But those things also make losing someone difficult, and that which we feel that we may define as difficult is just natural, because it's an outflow of really that relationship we have. So, what happens if somebody fails to embrace grief as natural? What might that look like, or what do you think some inherent struggles might be if somebody just says, I don't like this, I'm not going to go through, I'm just going to ignore this, shut the door on this in my life, I'm going to isolate myself from this incident and just move on with life. This has never happened. What do you think some potential pitfalls might be with someone that might just isolate themselves from grief and not embrace it as a natural thing that's happening in their life?
But as we move through these 5 N's, we're going to cover that quite a bit under necessary. When someone tries to push it away or push it off or push it down.
Yeah.
And so I think that if it's a natural part of life, just like the idea of love, I think that relationship, that connectedness, and if we don't respond and we don't naturally grieve that person, then the result is going to be some very unhealthy results of where that grief has just not been allowed to come out, and it's going to get messy. You sweep a dust bunny under a rug, you can only do that so many times until that thing gets out of the whack, and it grows and it becomes just it's not good.
Yeah.
Dust monster.
Dust monster. Yeah, it turns into
no longer a bunny.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yeah, that's true.
So, and the same thing with grief. It's it's natural. And if we just don't deal with it, it's going to come out some way or another.
Yeah.
Either controlled or uncontrolled.
Yeah, and that could be. I mean, we maybe get disgruntled. Maybe we're irritable, angry. Maybe we're depressed. The whole emotions could run. Be a great spectrum of emotion there. But I think of the Bible when you think about grief being natural. I think about Ecclesiastes chapter 3. It says in verse 2, it says there's a time to give birth, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot. And then in verse 4, it says of Ecclesiastes 3, there's a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. God, in his omniscience, he knew that that this is the way life's going to unfold for us, and that we're going to have these times when we're going to have laughter, and we're going to have times when we're going to have dancing, so to speak. We're going to have times of joy, but those times are also there's going to be times in our life also when there's going to be weeping, and there's going to be mourning, and we don't like those times, but our lives do have a balance of those experiences in life. And so I think it's important that if someone's going through grief, I think it's important that we encourage them to say, hey, this is natural what you're going through. No matter the range of what you're feeling, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but no matter what it is exactly you're going through, this is natural and it's okay. Let yourself work through this. So we have anything else on natural? We move to normal?
Yeah, let me back up for a moment, because I did say that if we don't deal with our grief, it's going to come out some other way.
Yeah.
And probably uncontrolled. We have no control over it. I don't want people to hear that if I feel like I just all of a sudden I find myself in tears, that's not okay. That is okay. It's absolutely okay to have those what might seem like uncontrolled response to grief. That's unexpected, rather. But what the idea is if I don't deal with my emotions, it's like a 5-gallon bucket, that you might have on a baseball field, and you can only hold so much emotions in that bucket.
Yeah.
And if I allow the water hose to just go uncontrolled into that bucket, it's going to get messy.
Yeah.
But I can allow grief to come out little by little by hitting the plunger and allowing the cup to fill up. So it's that way. It's controlled.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily messy and discouraging.
Yeah.
But if it goes undealt with, that's when it becomes messy.
Yeah.
And discouraging.
Yeah. So we have normal. So we have natural. But then the second N in this kind of roadmap for what a person's going to go through when they lose somebody, roadmap dealing with grief, is normal. Is normal. And it's a really important word. Some of these words are obviously really important, but normal is really important to think about because of people's experience with grief. And especially, Jim, sometimes people may think that what they're going through is not normal. They may think, am I the only one going through? Am I crazy? Am I weird? So how, why is it important we understand that grief's normal and what somebody's going through is a normal process?
When you think about grief and how overwhelming it can be, just how thought consuming it can be, or even how hard it is to think. And, that can really throw people for a loop. because if they're thinking all the time and not having any trouble with their thoughts and stuff, and then they're like hit with something with
Yeah.
a big loss, and they're just struggling to get thoughts to go through their mind, that can really concern you. It's like, anybody else experience this?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
this normal?
Yeah.
So it can affect our mind and how we think, but a lot of people experience feelings that they've never had before, or feelings that they've had, but they've never had them at this intensity.
Yeah.
And so when you experience something that you haven't ever experienced before, I think one of those thoughts can be, is this normal?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or am I crazy?
Yeah. Yeah. Nathan, when you think about normal, I mean, what you've kind of helped put this 5N little acronym together, 5N, 5 points together, rather, not acronym, but 5Ns together. What do you think about when you think of normal?
Yeah, I think the other side of it's normal. The other side is, in terms of like a normal response. The other side is that it's just a builder upon the natural. It's just it is a normal part of life. I mentioned I've only known one person in my life that had no idea what sadness felt like, or grief, or anger, or love. And you would say, well, that's not normal. It's not normal not to feel something.
Yeah.
And so having that sense of grief, and the outward response to grief, which is mourning, is a natural and it's a normal part of that grief process, because it's natural, it's normal. And in this process, you find some grief and comfort when you begin to realize that it's a natural part, it's a normal part of what I do.
Yeah.
Because then there's some grace and there's some comfort there to know that what I'm going through is normal.
Yeah.
Part of grief. I'm not a weirdo.
Yeah.
When I have the mind fog, or when I'm confused, or when I lose my train of thoughts, or I don't know what to do next, or I'm not even sure if I can make it the next 15 minutes without crying. Okay, well that's normal.
Normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a trick question for you. So what does normal grief look like? Jim, what's normal grief look like? I mean, can we define, is there a textbook, this is normal grief? So if you don't grieve this way, you're not normal. What's normal grief look like?
It's normal for it not to be normal.
There you go. I mean,
that it is very unique, because each person is unique, and the relationship that they had with the person is unique. And so the way that each of us grieve is going to be unique
and normal.
So my normal may look different than your normal.
Yeah.
When faced with a situation that is marked by loss.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about in the Bible, Mary and Martha, Jesus loved, and they had a brother named Lazarus.
Mhm.
And those familiar with that Bible story will remember that story, obviously. There in the Gospel of John, Lazarus gets sick. They sin. Mary and Martha sin for Jesus. They know Jesus can help them, and they know Jesus can heal Lazarus. Jesus loved Lazarus, and they sin for Jesus. And Jesus, in his providence and in his omniscience and so forth, knowing everything and working things perfectly according to God's will, showed up at the right time. And what I mean by that, by this time Lazarus had passed away. But it was so that Jesus could raise him from the dead and prove a greater point of who Jesus truly is as Messiah, as Savior, and identify himself as Lord. He was God, is God. And but it's interesting, they sent for Jesus, and by the time Jesus got there, Lazarus died. So he arrives on the scene, and you've got a bunch of mourning that's going on, right? People are grieving. Mary and Martha, Lazarus' sisters, are grieving. But I find it interesting that Martha meets Jesus, meets him and has a conversation, and then Jesus moves on beyond the conversation with her to another location in that same vicinity, obviously, and then has an encounter with Mary.
Mhm.
But I might think, well, why didn't Mary and Martha, when they see Jesus, just come running and fall at his feet, both of them,
Mhm.
But there was a different sort of interaction with Martha. There was a different sort of interaction between Jesus and Mary. Jesus, we're obviously shortest verse in the Bible where Jesus says, it says there that Jesus wept as he saw Mary's grief, obviously heartbroken over over her brother's passing. And so you see the differences in, as a pastor, working with folks, and I know you gentlemen as well have seen this, people's ranges of their responses to loss, the grief responses are different. From no tears to tears, we're going to talk about that later. But when it comes to being not the same for everyone, but I just want to say, I think folks need to know that what they're going through is natural and what their experience is normal. So, gentlemen, I appreciate you being with us today in our first episode here of this kind of 2-3 part podcast around these 5 N's. And hopefully what we've shared is about natural and normal. Perhaps something's inspired you. I want to encourage you to tune into our podcast. We're going to come back with part 2 at a later time, in the next episode, I should say. And so we're going to begin to talk about the third N, which is necessary. So be sure to tune back in for our next episode. And in the meantime, share this one, subscribe to our podcast, kind of get ready to take in the next one. And really appreciate you trusting us and tuning in with us to listen to this podcast. God bless. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. Feel free to join us next time. Also, please be encouraged to subscribe to our Dignifying Life podcast and share the podcast with others. If you need anything, reach out to us at Simpson Funeral Home in Webb City, Missouri at 417-673-2411 or find us online at simpsonfh.com.